Today we're going to be dealing with cross contour lines. So you're going to title your sketchbook Cross Contour Lines with the date. And what we need to know about them is that they define outer edges going across a surface. So when we do a contour line, we think of that as an outline, just the very outside of something, giving us some details. Cross contour lines actually go across the surface and they give us an idea of the form without adding any shading. So today we're going to end up with these forms. So a cylinder, two spheres, a bottle, and then a fruit. So to start off with, we're going to be drawing our objects. So to start out with a cylinder, you start with an ellipse for the top, like so. An ellipse for the bottom, connect them, and then get rid of the top half of that bottom ellipse. And that says that we're looking down at this object. Just gonna change pencils real quick. So once you have a nice cylinder figured out, we're gonna start by adding some lines to just the top portion, so this very top ellipse that we made initially. And so when we think of a cylinder, the top of it is flat, and so we want to define its flatness. This is also a symmetrical shape or a symmetrical form, so we're going to put a line of symmetry going down. So right through the middle. Like I said, the top is flat, so we'll make a line going across both horizontally and vertically. We're going to add some diagonal lines in there. So if you imagine splitting this in half, this is what you would have. And then to remind me that this is, all connected, just a round, flat, connected piece, I can add just a smaller version of my original ellipse right in there. And that's really all we need to do for the top. Kind of looks like a pizza or like a dartboard, just we're looking at it from an angle instead. So all of that tells me that this is a flat circle, not a round one like a sphere would be. So next we're going to deal with the actual body of our cylinder, which is just flat. And so because our cylinder is flat, all along the lines, both sides are going to be flat as well. So we just make some straight lines going down the body of our cylinder. And you can add as many or as few as you want to. Too many starts to look crowded, and too few doesn't really give me a lot of information. So try to keep it balanced. And that tells me if I run my hand down the side of this cylinder, it would be flat. Next, I want to get that sense of form or volume on the cylinder. It's not just going to be flat, but it comes out towards us because it's round. And if you think of a cylinder, if you cut it at any point, it's going to be just an ellipse shape. So I'm going to redraw those in there. And since this is something I'm looking down on, it's lower than me, I'm going to get the lower parts of these ellipses and really make them darker. And so that curved edge really lets me know that this is an object that curves in space. So it's one that's coming towards me. And the sides start to go away from me. And that's all you really need for a cylinder. Our next object is going to be a sphere. We're actually going to do two of them because we can think of it in two different ways. So all you need to do is draw a circle, and this time we don't want it to look flat the same way that we wanted our cylinder to look flat, but we want this one to look like it's round coming towards us. And so we're going to start by splitting this in half, going both ways, so both vertically and horizontally. Just fix that. So just a vertical line and a horizontal line. So when we deal with round objects, again, we're going to use that ellipse shape to help us. And we're going to split this up into right and left. As the sphere starts to go away from us, it starts to curve more. So this line represents us just looking straight at it. And as it starts to go away, you'll start to see that line curve more. So towards the right side, I'm going to make a line that curves just like the edge of it, but not quite as much, because it becomes a little bit straighter as it starts to face us. And as it starts to come towards us, it gets a little bit straighter. Same thing with the other side, and you can start in the middle if you want to. Just a straight line, and it'll slowly start to get curvier and curvier as it faces the edges. The same thing will happen going up and going down. What I like to do, because it makes it a little bit faster, is I'll just start with that ellipse shape, and the ellipse gets bigger and wider as we go out. So again, start with an ellipse, and it just gets wider and wider towards the edges. And there you go. If that's confusing for you, then we can try it this way as well. Just like with our cylinder, we'll split this up. If you cut this at any point, you would be able to see this ellipse in there, all the way to the edges. Anything that's higher than me in that center line, I'll get the higher part of that ellipse. Anything that's lower, I'll get the lower part of that ellipse. Same thing will happen sideways. Anything to the left, I'll get the left part of my ellipse. Anything to the right, I'll get my right part of the ellipse. So if that's confusing, then do it the first way. If you liked that better, if that helps you visualize it better, then do it this way. And there are definitely different ways you can look at breaking down a sphere. For the most part, you'll be the closest to that very central part, no matter which angle you approach a sphere at. Right now we're going to skip to our bottle. And so again, to draw a bottle, you're going to start with the base. Decide how tall you'd like it to be. Add in your line of symmetry. Any defining shapes, and all of that. For now, I'm just going to show you what it looks like cleaner. The very top is going to act exactly the way that our original cylinder did. So we can still break down this entire object with just a straight line of symmetry. The top we can break in half, and we're going to do that same thing where we go diagonally across and then create that ellipse in the center. The body of our cylinder and the body of our cap are the same, so we can just make them go straight down. If your cap has ridges in it, then this would also have ridges in it as well. But for now, this simplified bottle doesn't, so we don't have to deal with it. Next we need to deal with the right and the left side of the bottle itself. And so the body of the bottle goes down, curves out, straightens, and then goes in just a little bit. So near the edge of my bottle, it's going to be roughly the same. And then as it gets closer to the center, it's going to straighten out. Same with the other side. In the center, practically straight, just a little bit of curve to it. And as it approaches the edges, it's going to appear more like the actual edges and curve more dramatically away from you. Notice that they get closer when the bottle shrinks, and they get wider as the bottle does as well. After this, you can treat the rest of it as a series of ellipses. In the body, sometimes they get a little bit bigger. Towards the neck of the bottle, they would get smaller. And wherever it's straight, they'll be pretty consistent. Again, I'm looking down at this bottle. I know that because I can see the top of the cap. And so I'll get the lower parts of these. There are a bunch of ways that you can approach doing cross contour lines, but I find that splitting it up into all these different shapes helps the most. Finally, we're going to move on to the pear. And for this, as a gentle reminder of how to draw it, we start with an access line, find the widest point, the tops and the bottoms, any defining shapes, connect them and clean them up, add in a little dip, and then our stem. So even though this is an organic shape, we're going to treat it very similarly to the bottle and to the cylinder, all of that. I'm going to redraw my axis line where I imagine that would be, and put in where I think it's the widest and the bottom. So I can actually keep my beginning drawings for this, and they'll kind of act as a guide for me for now. So first thing I want to deal with is this top part, which we're going to treat kind of like the top of our bottle cap, the top of our cylinder, all of that. And what we did was we created these lines that brought us to the center. Here for our pear, our stem is actually going to be the center, so all these lines are leading in or coming from that central point. And so behind this pear and connected to the sides of it, all these lines are actually curving in and leading into that stem area. So you're going to draw a bunch of these lines that curve inwards and connect from the sides. After that, the sides are the same that we dealt with before. So just like with the sphere and with the bottle, we copy the sides, but we're going to start where the stem is. And as they approach the center, they're going to start to straighten out. So really try and get that sense of curvature. The inside, again, if you split it up and cut this pear at any point, would be a series of ellipses. And so I'm going to darken those as well. Towards the bottom, since the bottom is a little bit flatter, I'm going to indicate that this pear starts to flatten. And then up here, just like we added that extra ellipse for our cylinder, we're going to add an extra ellipse in here. We're also going to add some volume to our stem. If you drew yours very small, then it's not really something you have to deal with, but if you can show that your stem also has volume, then you can do that. And there you go. That's how you do cross contour lines. So what your assignment is for practice is that you're going to do your own set of a bottle and a fruit. So draw your own bottle, draw your own fruit, and try to do cross contour lines on it. So please label the next page in your sketchbook cross contour practice, bottle and fruit. Afterwards, you're going to do a cross contour hand. So the next page should be labeled cross contour hand. Hands are a little bit complicated to do. Here is my drawing of a hand and what it looks like with cross contours on it. So if you can see, your fingers you're going to treat very similarly to how you would treat a cylinder. So all your fingers are going to be cylinders. And it's important to note and add in your wrist, because all of these lines coming from your hand will stem from your wrist and split up at certain points. Your hand has your fingers, and then the palms of your hands are mostly going to be flat, and they'll bend and curve as your hand bends and curves. So make sure that you don't do a flat hand just like this, but that you try to actually look at the curves that your hands are making, especially in that thumb area. And you can add as many lines as you want to. Your nails you're going to treat as their own plane, because they really are separate even though they're connected to your actual fingers. So draw a hand and then try to put your own cross contour lines on it. See where things are above you or going away from you, and when things start to curve towards you. And that's all we have for cross contour today.